Hello, everybody. How are you? It's good to see. Hey, my Dune brother, you're going to Sturgis. That sounds exciting. Hey, Sarah. Hey, Juan. Nice to have you here. Let's see. Ah, yeah, I think we're playing the jazz. It's called the Black Cat. Oh, we're going to have a good night. Hopefully, some more will join us soon. Hey, Doc's Krusty says hi. Oh, that would be cool, flying over to Europe. Except I'd have to leave my house, Krusty. I don't leave the house.
So, so everybody can hear you right now, right?
Hey, can you guys hear me? Can I get a thumbs up? I'm not getting any. Yes.
Yep. Okay,
Yay! Good. I can be heard.
Excellent.
I love that. Well, we have a small little group, and that's okay. We don't care. I just want to welcome all of my justice warriors here because that's what we are. I'm your storyteller, Z, and I have my ride or die with me, Doc. He rides shotgun because he has to keep me out of trouble. Because I usually can find trouble somehow. But we got a couple of great stories for you that you'll want to get JD's wood chipper, trust me. So buckle up, you guys. It's gonna be a bumpy night. Anyone have anything exciting before we take off on our story tonight? Nada? Sarah, you look good with a blue wrench, honey. Okay, let's go. We will get our night started. Moose sitting there giving me a dirty look. She came and got me because I wasn't getting in here quick enough tonight. Yep. Being alive is always a plus, Krusty. I saw you when you mentioned that in the Discord. I agree with you. Look at these lovely gentlemen. Aren't they just awesome? And, I have a feeling that we need to let these guys out of the darkness. We have to know who they are. So we're going to expose injustice. We're going to demand some accountability, and we're going to start with these 6 dudes. And it's really disturbing. Child predators, hiding behind pulpits and religious authority. That's just so wrong. And yes, it might be Easter Sunday for a lot of people, but that doesn't excuse the behavior that we've been seeing. And this episode, it's all about predators in the pulpit when the churches harbor evil. And they do. So today we're going to talk about these situations. We got 2 cases. This one was kind of a Chris Hansen sting. And so it was a good one. These guys were morons, really. But this was in Bradford County, Pennsylvania. And they had the local pastor is the dude that's bald in the middle with the beard. And that's Brad Swink. And and the second is we're going to talk about Zachary Radcliff. And he was a youth pastor in his dad's church and also a musician. And that one's going to make you ill. Everyone will be calling JD asking for the wood chipper very quickly. So let's go ahead and check this out and see how the churches often are going to prioritize. Thank you, Don. Can prioritize the financial interests, and they failed the kids. So let's go to our next slide. Since I haven't been doing this long, I have my slides. Okay, so we're going to dive in, and we're going to get started here with these 6 were in a sting 3 days, and they caught these 6. There was supposed to be a 7th they were doing some more research on, but they haven't come back and said. I've been checking. And some of the charges, wow, a lot. But this was between April 7th and the 11th, and the Pennsylvania State Police and Northwest Computer Crimes Task Force executed 7 search warrants across the county after they got some cyber tips from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. And this wasn't random. You know, they actually had been investigating some of these tech platforms, and that they themselves had flagged suspicious, okay? It's not always someone else seeing it. Sometimes the platforms do come and let them know they have tips. And these tips came from Snapchat. Hey, is it inked? Good to see you. But we're talking about 6 guys that were picked up in a child predator sting in Pennsylvania. And so the tips came from Snapchat, it came from Instagram, and Microsoft Bing. And so that's going to show how technology is really important, and, you know, finding these guys. The cat rogues having to check everything out. Okay, let's see. Nothing fast is happening tonight.
Yeah, I don't know why it's so slow.
Okay, so the most high profile was the pastor, and it's this guy, Brad Swink. He was 40 years old. He was he went to the North Rome Wesleyan Church pastor. It was really, the things they caught him with. They took him into custody at the church. They didn't wait for him to get home, guys. They got him at the church. And the investigation into him began in January of 2023. And that's when they got the tip from Snapchat about suspected child pornography. Oh, let's see. Corn. They don't want you to see the P word. Silly billies. But the video in question reportedly adulted an adult male SAing a child. And they said it was really disturbing that the minute the Snapchat, they flagged it. And they got a hold of somebody because they're like, this is disgusting. And so the digital trail led them right to this dude. And his IP address, Little Billy Boy 8419 was his username. I mean, disgusting. And they linked it right to his house. And so Trooper Gabriel Paddock confronted him at the church. And this dude didn't even deny it. Didn't even say, hey, it wasn't me, it was someone else. Nope. He's like, yep, it was me. You know, I don't, and this dude is like 6'5". He is a big guy. He's just creepy. Oh, I put out a call to a friend that's a therapist or psychologist. I wanted to know, and I haven't heard back from her, but I'm going to ask her that question. With someone that does watching child photos, how long does it take them to go from that to actually harming a child? Because I would like to know how long, you know. I know there are those few that don't, but it's still wrong. So, but according to the police reports, he actually filmed himself pleasuring himself as he was watching children being SA'd. I mean, this is disgusting, and he'd been doing it, at least from what they found on his phone, since 2025. I mean, really? Ugh. And then they said the timeline for the moment he was actively engaged in the behavior which was continuing to lead his congregation. So he was still working with children at the church and doing all this while he was watching these things. And they said the evidence was just, no way he's going to get out of this. They also said that he possessed, that this isn't just a possession charge on him, that he also was creating it and distributing it. So he was, in the process of becoming a real entrepreneur, let's say, in sliminess. But his online presence was really, really disturbing because he liked the violence. They said that his personal YouTube channel contained 187 upload videos, many featuring the young churchgoers at his church. And these weren't hidden accounts. These were with his name on it, publicly put out there, that he was having these members of his church, these poor little kids. Who knows, we don't even want to think what he was thinking. So it's a good thing they finally got him, because he would have gone on to have hurt someone. There's just no doubt about it. He would have. Now, this is Brandon Lance. This textbook example of how a predator operates. They said they seek the positions of authority. And that's really, like we're seeing all these female school teachers. I don't know what's going on. Every time we talk about child predators in school, we always talk about the male teacher. But lately, the female women have been losing their minds. They're usually married. They usually have children. And then they're out there chasing these young little boys around. I don't get it. Some of them even getting pregnant by them. And that's just disgusting. But it's just, they get these positions of authority over kids, and kids think that they have to listen. So there was 5 other guys. This was one of them. He was 28 years old. He lived in Athens, and he's charged with 28 felony counts. And they found where he had described his videos of children being SA'd on his phone and laptop. And he was using a program called Kicks, which is a messenger app, where he would get his videos and images and suspected child porn, where he would upload and send through their platform. So he was sharing it. So 28 felony counts for Brandon. And then the next guy, let's see. Oh, this guy's a winner, you guys. He's slow. I mean, for Lance, we weren't finished with him. He had one video that even a toddler. Okay, that's just, I just bypass jail, get the wood chipper. We're just going to go right on by. That's just, oh yeah.
Ooh, the wood chipper expects.
Yes, we need an express line, and Lance needs it. It was just awesome. I mean, just awesomely disgusting, and those poor children. Because somebody out there, those children belong to them, and that just makes you ill. But when they got the search warrant for his house, he gave them the passcode to his phone. And so they immediately saw what he was hiding, and that he wasn't even nervous about passing it over to him. I mean, can you believe that? He looks like your ex-husband's dad when he was younger. Oh, great. He was a chomo too. Oh. Must be the dumb look in their eyes. Kind of cockeyed. I don't know. But that's Calvin Schaefer, 44-year-old. And this guy was caught and described in a reckless manner, with Instagram officials reported an account posting the child photos, and the account used his selfie on the profile picture. So we're talking about a brain scientist here. He was just so smart. He put his own photo on the platform he was using for illegal activities. Which, hey, great. That way they caught him. Hey, fella. So happy you're here, darling. Hope you had a good weekend too, darling. But yeah, so Schaefer here was just, yeah, he's in the Mensa Club, I have a feeling. But they,
Beyond Mensa.
Beyond Mensa. I think you're right. But just how brazen they were. I mean, none of these guys tried to hide it. That's what I'm just baffled at. They were just like, here's my identification. And it's like, that picture, yep, that looks like you on Instagram. And let's see, what's our next guy doing? Hey, therapist, we will ask you the question, therapist, with someone that's viewing, if you know, a lot of the child porn photos, how long would it take them before they're actually perhaps harming children? Because these guys are just, they're with the Mensa program. These guys were just total morons. Thank goodness they got caught because, yeah, they were gonna harm someone. There's no doubt. Now the 29-year-old guy with the white T-shirt and the glasses, that's Evan Hitchcock. He's another Mensa member. He allegedly told the police he was watching the child photos because it was an escape for his depression. And so, according to the report, he said he admitted to viewing it on and off for 8 years and even named known sites and where such material could be found. So he was also a chatty Cathy, which is good. And so they said the most common justification in these cases is the idea that consuming this content will either be therapeutic or an escape. That's just gross, because it's not. Okay, therapist, you're right. The most famous and infuriating answer is, it depends. Hey, the crime addicts. Good to see you too. But, okay, let's see. We've covered about 3 of them. No, 4. Okay, let's go on to Robert Michel. I think that's how you say it. Give it a French term. Hey, these are my arm warmers. When I get pain in my hands, they help. Do you like my little skulls? But anyway, Robert here was caught after they got the tip searching for it on Bing, the platform, and he reportedly told the officials that he had viewed it on his computer as recently as that morning. I have never seen such chatty arrested people. I mean, usually they try and be a little sneaky. Not these guys. They were just almost like they were proud of what they had done. Just disgusting. And finally, the most concerning case. This is the guy, Robert Pilot, a 50-year-old from Canton, who was already a convicted sex offender before. And during the investigation, they found he was using 6 different online screen names. 6. And he hadn't reported to the sex offender registry like he's required by law. And so, even more disturbing, one of the phones seized during the raid allegedly contained a video of him exposing himself to an 8-year-old. I mean, that's just, in prison, they're going to get some justice. That's the only thing you can be glad of, is that the prisoners aren't going to put up with him. The inmates are going to go nuts with these guys. They got a nice variety to choose from. But Pilot's case demonstrated how the registration alone isn't enough to protect children. I think if they're going to let these pedophiles and chomos out, they need to put them on, an ankle bracelet. I mean, personally, they should never let them out. In fact, they should have a place like under the jail for them. I always kind of thought maybe something like Escape from New York only we won't send Snake Plissken in to help. We'll just leave him there and let them do themselves in. But his previous conviction and registration requirements were so that he allegedly continued to access and produce the essay material. So he was producing it. I'm just wondering if somehow these guys all knew each other because they were all in the same area. And he's now being held. He didn't get a bail. He did not get one. I think the pastor, I think his was like 100,000. I think Hitchcock's was 300,000. I mean, they put some good bails on these guys because they did not want them out. Let's see. It said all 6 of them have preliminary hearings tomorrow. No, the 22nd. So that's what? Tuesday. Yeah. So I'll have to try and see if we get any updates. Hey, Matt. No problem. I'm just rambling on, telling a really terrible tale of a bunch of chomos. But at least they were really chatty and really pretty much confessed the minute the cops showed up. So they weren't smart. And let's be honest, most chomos aren't. But the charges they face are substantially ranging from multiple counts of possessing, distribution, to some cases of production of child essay material. And so this entire operation that they had was really critical with the tech companies and how they really were identifying it and putting in the tips. Because what if, Snapchat hadn't have got a hold of them? I think that's awesome, the Snapchat, because a lot of us rag on Snapchat because we do know that there is a lot of chomos that get on there. And that was one thing I wanted to discuss tonight, was that someone in New Jersey is suing Discord because they're saying that there are predators on Discord. And I'm kind of like, there are predators on every social media platform out there. I mean, it's sad, but it is true. And I think we have to come to a point where parents, you have to be responsible for what your children are viewing. You have to know what they're viewing. You can't expect someone else to take care of your kids. Let's see. Therapists, not all individuals who view commit hands-on offenses, but the risk is significantly higher among this group than in any Yeah. I agree with you there. And there are predators everywhere. It's like there isn't a platform that hasn't had one. And it's sad. It's wrong. But, you can't be holding the platforms totally responsible. It's kind of like when, parents want the teachers to raise their children, but yet let little Johnny get in trouble. And then mom goes down there and starts screaming at everybody when you weren't making sure he did his homework. You weren't, checking on him, in his schoolwork. So it kind of all interacts. Something to think about. But this is the second case. This pond scum knuckle dragger is named Radcliff. Zachary Radcliff. And he's 29 years old. He was a former youth pastor and music director at the Oakwood Church in Poughkeepsie, Michigan. His father was the minister of the church. And this, Little Miss is the one that brought this case to me, because she had found a bunch of trials, hearings, where he had gone for hearings with if anyone is used to YouTube, you all have to love Judge Cedric Simpson out of Detroit, because Judge Simpson usually can make a joke and laugh in court and is pretty funny. I have never seen Judge Simpson so overwhelmed, because the things that he had to listen to that this little knuckle dragger did, it just makes your skin crawl. And so I sat through a bunch of it, so you guys don't have to, and scrub my brain with bleach later. But He had when he went in before Judge Simpson the first time, he had 11 felony charges, okay? But it quickly expanded to 33 because once he got arrested, other children came out, which a lot of times can happen. So he was bound over a $3 million bond, guys. That's awesome. He was not letting this guy go out. And it wasn't Judge Simpson that actually gave him the bond, but there was a bond hearing, and his attorney, that defense attorney, was talking about, well, he's really well known in the community. Yeah, do you want to talk to some of the kids from his church? They know him more than they should. But 17 counts are first degree criminal SA conduct, 28 counts of child SA actively, 7 counts of aggressive or aggravated child SA, 7 counts of using a computer to commit a crime, and he's facing life in prison. The preliminary examination in February had the testimony from 9 of the victims. Well, 8 young men, and 1 was still a minor. And they described the whole thing of how this dude groomed them and the abuse that they put him through. And it was just outrageous what he did to him. They were able to go ahead and look back in his history, and they think it started way back in 2011. When he was 16, he was already picking on the younger kids, So this guy is really, and his father and mother are sitting in court every day behind him. And I'm sorry, if that was my kid, hit the road, Jack. I'm sorry. I would not be sitting in court if my kid had done this to my parishioners, because these other children were in your care. You were supposed to be their minister. That is one picture of poor Judge Simpson. He didn't know what to do with himself, and I felt sorry for him. And a lot of us love his bailiff because his bailiff is really very kind. There were a couple of times I thought he put his hand really close to his gun. I think he was wishing that this guy would make a run for it. I really do, because it was like, if he goes, I'm ready, But Judge Simpson said he has been on the bench for more than 25 years, but he described Radcliff as one of the most egregious predators he had ever seen. He said that no one had done the things that this guy had done to these children. They thought of him as a brother or a mentor, and he really groomed them. You guys, he just took his time with these kids, and it was disturbing listening to the grooming process. And, him positioning himself by going out and buying the boys, outings and clothes and movies and meals and shopping trips, because these were kids that didn't get these things. And of course, that's what a predator does, is they look for the vulnerable people. So they're looking for the kid that was having trouble with his mom, that didn't have a dad in the house, and he was calling him up, and he was, picking him up late at night and, taking him to the park. And then he started stuff with him. The kid wanted nothing to do with him, but he got put in a position he felt like he had no choice. And so he was targeting these kids that were in tough homes. His father, Frank, served as the senior pastor, and his father did say that they went ahead and fired him, not the father, but the son, pretty quickly. The allegations came out, and when the next day they had doubled, they let him go. They said that this Zachary's out, And Radcliff, what he was doing was he was soliciting videos from these young boys. And he was making up this story about how there was this Japanese, a photographer, we'll call him, that was paying between $80 to $130 for videos or photos. And then he would try and get them to show their face. It wasn't enough that he was getting them to do things and send him on the internet. He wanted them to show their face. So that just shows what a sick little twisted puppy he was. And poor Judge Simpson. There were several times you just wanted to hug the poor man. And that defense team, those people were awful. I mean, when he he flat out told that defense attorney, the woman, he says, "Do you want to say one more thing? You can say one more thing, but you're not going to like the consequences." He really put her in her place because he had had enough with what they were trying to say. They kept trying, they would tell Judge Simpson, "Well, you ordered that these kids weren't supposed to be anywhere near each other." He says, "I didn't order that." He said, "We closed the courtroom for two of their two of them that were testifying because they were still in high school. The rest had all reached adulthood, but two were still considered minors. And so they closed the courtroom and they had them over in another room after they were done, if they were let go from the testifying, because they didn't want them in the same area that the preacher's family was at, because the preacher, the father, had actually harassed some of these kids. And so had Zachary. He'd called that one boy and told him to shut his mouth and, cursed at him and told him he better not be saying anything. So, yeah. And the stupid Japanese businessman story. And those poor kids fell for it. And they just, that one kid, he's going to need therapy. Let's just be honest. He's going to need therapy because it does hurt. I agree with you, Sarah. Your heart hurts for these children. Because the one was, I think, 12 when he started grooming him. Yeah, so they were like 12, 13, 14, 15, But the evidence presented in court suggested that he may have even used the church credit cards to buy things for these kids. So he wasn't only doing these outrageous and evil things to the children, he was committing theft. And he was buying him an iPad and headphones for one victim because the one kid, his parents did not want him to have an iPad. Well, he showed up with one. Well, now we know where he got it. So he was using all these resources from the church in his grooming practices. And then one of the testimonies was the 23-year-old man describing how when he would tell Zachary he wanted nothing more to do with him, this dude would cry. He was the adult and he would cry and say they were breaking his heart. Okay, that's just a knuckle dragger if I ever knew one. That guy is just gross. But, so he was emotionally manipulating these kids. And another survivor was talking about how he had an encounter that he was scared because he said Zachary always had a gun. And he said the one time that he had kind of forced him, he said, I went ahead and did it because I didn't know if he still had the gun on him because he always carried one. And think about it. I mean, this is a person in power. And then if he has a weapon, these kids didn't have much of a choice because that was the defense was trying to make it out like they kept asking these kids, well, how old were you? Well, how old do you think Zachary, how much older is Zachary than you? And these kids were like, I don't know. Because these things happen, quite a few years ago. So it's just ridiculous. Hey, Ken, good to see you, darling. Yeah, he was using every advantage. Oh, I forgot to replace that picture.
Ooh.
Don't know who those people are. That's fun. But anyway, he kept telling that one kid it was their cute little secret. I mean, just make the kid feel awful. Isolating them with their trauma and serving as that trusted youth leader. And he was the music guy, so he would get him involved in music and playing guitar and that kind of stuff. But it was just, this guy, I can't wait for the trial. I just want him to go away and never, ever, ever come out. But Judge Simpson would not let the bond go. $3 million. And his attorney argued that, there's no bond, and requested a reduction to $10,000. He had already called up and yelled at one of these kids like they're going to let him go. I don't think so. In fact, when it first came out that he was being investigated, he took off for Virginia. I guess his attorney said it was to go visit a friend. But his mother didn't even know where he was. She goes, well, I thought he went to such and such state. So there for a while, nobody knew where he was. And so Judge Simpson's like, we can't trust that he's not going to run. And, oh, well, Judge, you can give him, a bracelet, an ankle bracelet, or, we'll give up everything. He'll be under house arrest. He'll do this, because he can't go. He has no money anymore. He doesn't have a job. So he's, poor. And, it's not like he can go and, hitchhike, because people don't pick up hitchhikers anymore. It's like, excuse me? People do. I mean, usually they're serial killers, and maybe that's not a bad thing, but yeah, they usually get picked up. So, yeah, we might need to ponder that. So the prosecution was just, yeah, no bail. He got $3 million, and there's no way anybody was going to come up with $3 million to help him. So because he had fled to Virginia, and they still don't exactly know everywhere he was. That was the sad thing. Is who knows? Because one person was saying, well, he went to visit my sister, and oh, he went to see a college friend. I'm thinking your college friend really wanted to see you, I'm sure. I don't think so. We didn't say, crime addict, you're not a serial killer. It's okay if you pitch up hitchhikers. It's okay. Don't do it, though, really. But there's Zachary in green. I wonder what green means. It'd be nice if they had a certain color just for the chomos, wouldn't it? Then it wouldn't be a hard thing.
Oh, wait a minute. There's no bail for a federal case?
Oh, I think it might just depend on the state. I don't know. Because I know, like, Diddy was trying to get bail, but they wouldn't give it to him. They were like, nope, you're not getting out. You're going to stay. So the one thing that I really appreciated was Judge Simpson. He said, these boys showed extraordinary courage as survivors because every one of them looked right at Zachary Radcliff and told their story. So they didn't back down. Even the young kid that was still in high school did not back down, looked at him straight on to tell their story. And that's awesome. I mean, that's pretty brave. Hopefully they've had someone to talk to, to get them to that point, because that would be tough. I mean, they're children. I don't care if, some of them are like 23 or with what they've been through, they're still considered children in my book. I mean, it's terrible. But let's see. Yeah, that was the woman defense attorney. Judge Simpson got upset with her quite a few times. But he said these young men need to be believed. They ought to be believed. He found their testimony not just compelling, but exceedingly credible. He observed that when asked questions where they could have exaggerated or fabricated more details, they didn't. They said when they didn't know something, they didn't try to mislead anybody. because Judge Simpson was only in charge of the preliminary hearing. He wasn't going to be judging this case. So that's why he came out and said this afterwards. And he said that it was a critical point when discussing the cases of child SA within the religious institutions. Because too often these victims, especially when the abuser holds the position of trust and authority within that community, the courage that it's required to come out is just immense. Because you're not just coming out against him, you're coming out against the church. And how will all the members take it? Because eventually, it will get known. It will get passed around. And that was one thing, that defense attorney, he was trying to ask those kids, like, well, did you know so-and-so? One of the other victims, and that one kid was like, no. They went to the same church, but I think there was an age difference and he didn't really know him. So these cases, the first 6 that got caught in the sting were in Bradford County, and this was in Michigan. And so it really is giving us this question about responsibility. And this brings us to this segment that J.D. DeLay brought out on his platform last night, and it blew my mind. That there are now religious organizations that are purchasing what is known as sexual abuse and molestation insurance, or SAM insurance, that specializes in coverage that protects the church against financial losses arising from sex abuse claims, including the legal fees, settlements, and judgments. So stop and think about that for a minute. If you belong to a church and you found out that the church board or the minister is paying for SAM insurance, I'm sorry. I would have an issue, because that is a huge problem. And I agree, Sarah. I don't think they should be able to get that. It's not, you didn't have a fire, you didn't have a tornado. This is something you have control over. And it says that it's like the prudent risk management, similar to having, fire insurance and the liability coverage. It's not natural. You're doing something that is illegal and wrong. I mean, we've heard of these crazy insurances, like with, models that have had their legs insured, whatever. But this is so you can commit criminal activity and the church doesn't get harmed. So SAM insurance generally provides financial protection against the high cost of legal fees, settlements, and other expenses related to the SA claims. It's supposed to cover counseling or therapy for the victims. And that's my question, because some of these kids, I'm sorry, they can be in therapy for life. Some kids don't get over this quickly. Sometimes it affects their entire life. Kind of broken. Good to see you. I'm glad you joined us. And it's true, because, we see these kids that end up having addiction problems. They might be promiscuous afterwards. They might commit crime. There's also physical and other mental issues that they can get, all from these crimes being committed against them by adults. And yet they're saying, oh, well, this will cover the therapy. No, it won't. It won't. In fact, in one of the things I read, I don't remember if I put it down, but it said in California, one of the minimum or middle of the road, settlements was like $58,000. That ain't going to buy you much therapy. I'm sorry. So it's not even like they're giving him, Sarah, a bunch of money. $58,000, and you have a childhood that they've lost their childhood. They're messed up now because of what they've been through. Because let's face it, children that have been preyed upon, they ask, did I do something to encourage this? Is this my fault? The things that come out, and it's not. They did nothing but get in the way of a predator, someone that knew what they were doing, that was out there hunting for a victim. So some of the questions that arise: are churches more concerned with protecting their assets than protecting children? Also, is the child abuse being treated as just another financial risk to manage? Just, oh, we got to have tornado insurance. Oh, don't forget the SAM insurance. Or just something we're going to manage here. When a church purchases SAM insurance, what message does that send about their expectations regarding predators? So you're betting you have a predator on your staff, or you are a predator, and you're protecting yourself. Basically is what you're saying. The document we reviewed acknowledges the reality, is quite explicitly noting that we must realize that, predators often follow where children go. And we know that. You're right, Krusty. Therapy doesn't solve everything. It can help. And some people, JD talks about how well his therapy has been for him. Some people, it can take a long time to find a therapist. Sometimes you just don't connect. And I would think some people and some children, when they grow up, might have trouble even connecting with other people, having relationships of any kind. Crime addict, true. 58K is what, 3 years of weekly visits. And that's nowhere. No, it's not close enough. 3 years? No. If you took a victim, like some of his victims are still like 16 and 17, and 3 years, they're supposed to, at 20, 22, they're supposed to be well and fine? No. So that's one thing to think about. I mean, that just, when JD said that, and I was like, I've got to look into this. I have never heard of SAM insurance. I mean, this is just wrong. I don't understand. Whoever came up with it just saw an opportunity to make money. Let's be honest. Because for one thing, very few kids really falsely claim these kind of charges. Usually when you get a case of these kind of claim where a child's claiming this, it's usually a divorce case, and it's usually one parent against the other that's, putting out stories. I mean, and I'm not saying that it happens every time, but most times. So the financial burden often falls on the congregations themselves. I'm sorry, if I'm part of a congregation, I'm not worried about the church staying together if we've had a predator preying on children. There are other churches, So let's figure that out. That needs to be away. Archbishop Gregory Imon initially promised, he was from New Orleans, he promised that no money from parish collections would be used to resolve claims, but later reversed this stance, telling the local Catholic churches they will now have to share some of the cost of resolving hundreds of clergy abuse claims. I think the Catholic Church has enough money to, unless they've just done too many kids in that, and let's be honest. If you go back to what they did to the young girls in Ireland that were unwed mothers, I mean, it's just the stories you could tell about the Catholic Church. But as we can see, it's no longer just the Catholic Church, because predators have found a place to prey on children. And then let's see, it says it, and that was just a tough week for the archdiocese at the time when he said this. And it said one day earlier, a grand jury had indicted a retired archdiocese priest, Lawrence Heckler, on charges of aggravated rape, aggravated kidnapping, aggravated crime against nature, and theft. Heckler's indictment came less than 3 months after an investigation exposed a typed statement that he gave in 1999, guys. 1999, in which he admitted to leaders at the New Orleans Archdiocese that he had inflicted overtly SA acts on multiple teenagers in the late 60s and 70s. Multiple. So think about the timeline. He admits to these abuses in 1999, and it takes till 2023 for a criminal indictment. 24 years. And these were acts that happened in the 60s and 70s. So what was the delay? You know? What did that do to these kids? In fact, one of the hugest dioceses up in Massachusetts, they got the state to change some laws. I'm not kidding. They got the state to change laws so that there was a cap on how old you could be when you remembered to when they would have to, pay anything. So, yeah. Before it leaves my... You're not a survivor, you're a thriver. Keep crushing it. Success is the best revenge. Keep thriving. I like that, Krusty. Hey, we all need to be sometimes. It's cool. But those are, and I'm sure it's hard to see the picture, but those are some of the different things that happen to kids that have been SA'd. Because it is catastrophic what they go through when they go through these experiences in a religious setting. Because they're not going to trust anybody. Spiritual trauma that goes along with it. They may never have a spiritual relationship, because this is what happened when they tried as a kid. We don't know what goes on for them. And I mean, that just breaks your heart. So their entire lives can be totally just derailed. They might have had a bright future, and then with the mental health and everything that can happen to them, being betrayed by someone that, had that authority over them, and then having the institution compound it. I can't imagine what these kids are going through. And for the church to focus on an insurance solution instead of, how about transparency, accountability, the implicit convey the institution preservation matters more than a child in that case. So the proper protection would mean robust screening. They need to be screening these people. It's kind of like with the police that, they're bad. They're a bad cop. And so instead of the agency dealing with him, they'll say, well, we'll let you move on and we won't say anything bad about you. And that's what they do with these religious leaders. It's like, well, let someone else deal with him. No, they need to be screening him. And when you get someone that's bad, kick them out. Get them arrested. They need to cooperate with the authorities. I'm sorry. They have to be arrested and they have to be tried, and then they have to go under the jail. Or to some island. And that was in a church blog I found. Sexual abuse series. Do you have adequate insurance for sexual abuse allegations? That was in a church blog. Isn't that fabulous? Looking out for themselves. So this would, the actions of really doing a thorough search, doing background checks, doing screenings, looking for victims, making sure your staff knows what a victim looks like that's been SA'd. That would help their financial risk instead of this, let's go buy some insurance and hope things work out. But there are the proponents who argue that having this does mean that a church expects to doesn't expect to harbor a predator, and they're just being prepared, in case there is one. And no, I don't agree with that.
They just know what happens.
Yeah. Because they wouldn't be needing it if they didn't know what happened. But the documents were reviewed states that the sexual misconduct is not limited to any particular denominator and that incident rates of abuse are similar across different religious groups. So, it used to be anytime someone talked about it in a religious setting, we always said it was the Catholic priest. It's not. All different religions have this going on. So we have to accept that argument that the question remains, is insurance enough? Is it even the right approach to addressing this problem, or does fundamentally misunderstand the nature of SA within a religious institution? And I think they're missing the mark. They blew it on this one as far as I'm concerned. And SAM insurance needs to be kicked out. They shouldn't be able to get it. Because to me, that would be like a police officer saying, can I get insurance in case I delete someone with my weapon? So it's like you're preparing to commit the crime. And that's what this feels like. I'm preparing to commit a crime. So let me protect like the church board is going to protect themselves. So a comprehensive approach to this includes educating, training your staff, recognizing if you see signs of abuse. I say no NDAs. I'm sorry, because some of these cases that we had here in Texas, that's what they tried to get the victims to sign, was NDAs to protect the church's reputation. No, you lost the right to being protected. When you let a predator in the door, when you were warned about the predator, and when you knew something was going on, no more NDAs for you. Nada. You're done. And so, these were just a couple of the cases I came across. And like I said, Little Miss had brought me the one about Zachary because she was just astonished. And I agree with her. This was a terrible case. And this is going to be a brutal trial, you guys. It's going to be ugly. But yeah. The SAM insurance, we got to get rid of it. It's got to go. Yeah, I wonder how many people, if they knew that SAM insurance existed, would you call your church to find out if they have it? And then my question would be, why? Why do you have it? Do you feel like someone here is a predator? Oh, Sarah, that's a good idea. Get a hold of Angry Cop or Donut Operator and see what they think. Yeah, I would love to hear what their thoughts are. But like I said, JD had mentioned it the other night, and I was like, SAM insurance? What's that? I was having a hard time believing it existed. So, but it does. It's like, goodness, this has got to stop. So poor Judge Simpson. Everybody give Judge Simpson some good thoughts, because he had to sit through all that, and it was terrible watching that poor man do that. There were a few times where his face were in his hands. So if you see something, we got to say something, people. We can't let this keep going. I know Judge Simpson, he said these young men need to be believed, and they ought to be believed. We can only listen and act to protect the most vulnerable. And that's really what these churches that are running out and getting SAM insurance, that's what they're not doing. They're not listening. They're not protecting. Yeah, that's just wrong. There is a hotline here. So if you do know of anyone, the National Sexual Hotline is available 24/7. It's 1-800-656-HOPE, HOPE. And that's 4673, And even if it's something that happened to somebody in the past, call. If you've never called or never talked about it, find someone, because it needs to be, you need to get that out, because it's just poison, and it's, it affects our lives in ways that we don't even know that it affects us. So, it's nothing for us to be ashamed about. And I think that was one remarkable thing of those young men that stood up and faced that creature, knuckle dragger, and didn't hide in shame. because that was brave. That was very brave because they're still very young, and I commend them for that. And I hope they know that people think that they did do a good job. Our computer is slow tonight. Something's not talking to, they're not talking to each other. Oh, I love this. This was one of his Zach Radcliffe's record covers. Surrender. So I put it up there. We want you to surrender. Just confess, get it over with. Go to the wood chipper quietly. We'll be okay. Um we will, I'll try and keep an eye on these cases because they need to be out there, and I want to hear that all these victims got some justice. Yeah, because it just breaks my heart, these poor kids and what they've been through. And the other kids in town know who they are because unless it's a really huge area, a lot of them went to the same church. But, when these kind of things happen, they don't talk. And I put up there 3 reasons to believe children when they disclose SA abuse, because it is important. They need to be believed. The court systems, we will follow. It seems like we had some duplicates. It was a duplicate doc.
Next one's coming.
Let's see here. Okay, this is a missing person alert, everybody. I talked to her mother through Facebook. Her name's Rihanna Sellers. She's been missing for 2 weeks. She's located up in the Canada, British Columbia area. She was last known to be heading from the Mission area to catch the ferry back to Nanama. It's current unknown whether she made it back to Vancouver Island or is still on the mainland. Possible locations are the Mission area, Vancouver and surrounding areas, Nanama. I'm sorry. I was gonna listen on my computer how they pronounce that, and I didn't, and I apologize for that. And the Vancouver Island. The last location she was seen was at Abbotsford, British Columbia. She has not been in contact with her family. They filed a missing persons report with the Mission Police Missing Persons Department. And her family wants everyone to keep their eyes open. And this is the most recent picture of her. There's another picture I have where she's got dark hair. Her hair is normally dark brown. She has dark brown eyes. Her height is 5'9". She weighs around 150. She was last seen in all black clothing. Okay, Sarah. I'd love to have a spreadsheet. But let's see. But so her mom said that was the most recent hair color, but as we know, women can change our hair color quite frequently. Rihanna may be experiencing challenges with addiction and could be in areas frequented by unhoused individuals or those struggling with substance abuse. Her appearance may differ from her most recent photo that we just saw with kind of the red hair or auburn. And we have no judgments on this channel. Everybody deserves to be counted and deserves to be helped. So even if someone has problems with addiction or homelessness, as we had those last 2 cases on different serial killers, one in Canada, one in Alaska, we don't hold judgment against these girls or men in these situations. Because like these cases we talked about tonight, we don't know what happens that causes someone to maybe live on the edge a little bit or to live a different lifestyle than we would. One of the cases that we covered was with a serial killer in Alaska. One of the women, Veronica, had been abused by a priest. And so her life had kind of gone off the rails. I'm not saying that's Rihanna's situation. I don't know that situation. I just know that she's missing. She could be in an addiction issue. She might not. We don't know. But if anyone's in the area, or if you know somebody that lives out in British Columbia, get this to them. Let's get the word out. She has children that are desperately missing her. Any information, even if it's something really, really tiny and we think it's insignificant, please contact the Mission Police. I've listed their number. If you want to stay anonymous, Crime Stoppers. There are too many missing, and I did that wrong. It's supposed to be MMIW. I did it backwards. Must have been dyslexic tonight. That's crazy. But it should be MMIW, Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women. The Red Dress Alert is another thing that they bring up. And sometimes with the missing people, Indigenous women, you will see they will hang a red dress. The color red is very important because that is the hand. No more stolen sisters. Let's bring her home. Her family is looking for her. They love her. They want her safe. She's a beautiful young lady that needs to come home. So let's remember that tonight. Remember, when you're out and about, stay off the phone a little bit. Look at your surroundings. See if you see someone that could use some help. A lot of times if women or children are in danger, sometimes they won't come out and tell you. So if they don't, you can still contact authorities. Don't be embarrassed. It's no big deal. You're providing a tip. It's not snitching if these people are in danger or need help. It's not, it's not a bad thing. I know myself, I have found myself contacting some very strange authorities in the last year. So, when you see something, you say something. And that's what we want to do. I told her mom that I would put this out there tonight because we want Rihanna's sellers to be able to come home. I'm hoping that she gets found and she's okay. And that's what we're going to hope for, because we don't want any more missing women. They need to be brought home and they need to be safe and they need to be counted because we're all human. Like JD always tells us, we're all part of the human family. And it doesn't matter, what nationality, what group we are with. We're all part of the human race. So, let's be kind to each other. And let's think about that. You're going to see more of this on my channel is showing more girls or women, even some men that are missing and may have either met bad characters or something has happened. So let's try and, really be those justice warriors and keep our eyes out. Krusty, while you're at Sturgis, keep your eyes out, dude. I know the tribes in South Dakota really worry about trafficking during Sturgis, especially this year because it's the 80th anniversary. And so it's going to be huge. And it's something to think about. If anybody knows any motorcycle groups that are against trafficking, because I'm not putting any group in with anybody. I know there are good groups out there. Maybe we can get some of them to stand up for these victims in the Sturgis area, because someone needs to look out for these girls, young boys. This is just wrong. But that's kind of what I had tonight. Thursday, I'm not sure. I got so much information. I had a friend that has been closely associated with the First Nations, and she's given me lots of stuff to research. And so we've got a lot of fun subjects to look into on this dark road of injustice that we see. You know, if someone has a case that you want me to look into, my email's attached here to the YouTube, to the channel. Go ahead and send me the information. I'll be glad to look into something. We just need to speak for people. We need to take care of each other, okay? And I just want you all to remember that every killer out there is counting on your silence. You know, don't be the reason that we tell another story on this channel. If you know something, you say something. Because that wasn't a mannequin. It never is one. But I love you guys. And I had a great night, and I appreciate that you were all here for me. We'll see you on Thursday. Okay? I think my picture on there is the dog that my boss brings to work. Sarah, you're funny. I love you, girl. Oh, I'll chat with you later, Sarah. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Good night.